What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Advanced Sports Analytics Show. I'm your host, Travis Mangone, here back with my buddy Stewart. How's it going over there, my man?
Hey, it's going all right. Morning record is kind of a different look from this side of the computer today.
Yeah, we're doing this here on Friday morning for you guys. Excited to get kind of going with the NFL. This is definitely a really, really interesting slate. Before we kind of dive into that, though, we are going to talk about, if you're watching this right now, there's NBA going on this season, and NBA is a great time. And if you're watching on Friday, we have a little bit of a nice little free roll going on over here on RotoGrinders at the Lineup HQ. It's for premium subscribers only, but if you get this for free, if you're playing on Friday, you get to enter up to 150 lineups using the Lineup HQ. And you can jump in on the Yahoo contest. If you're looking on how to get on that, go on at RotoGrinders over here, jump in, look at the banner at the top, click on that. It'll lead you to the Lineup HQ, build 150 lineups, start in the Yahoo contest, and you can use it for free. So jump on in, play some NBA right now. But Stewart, we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about NFL now, and we're going to talk about the Week 9 review. And Week 9 was a pretty good week for me. I can't complain overall. And listen, the reason I can't complain is Christian McCaffrey season, man. It was some good times with him. I didn't have as much Russ Wilson to the Bucks and Lockett stacks that I wish I would have had. But talk about the Week 9 review for us.
Yeah, so week for me. I just went under break even. But yeah, I mean, Christian McCaffrey, with Jalen Samuels value opening up there, it all of a sudden became at least for me in cash, like a no-brainer. You had to jam, or you didn't even really have to work that hard to get McCaffrey in. And when you have that opportunity, like there's just no reason not to. And yeah, I think where I got killed, likewise, just like didn't get enough on that Seattle-Tampa Bay game. I kind of had, like a little bit of a paralysis by analysis where I was like, well, I don't know. I'm generally kind of hesitant to play some of these Seahawks pass game guys just because they can become so run dominant and frequently just go to like Chris Carson. But I didn't want to play Chris Carson because Tampa Bay's run defense is so good. And I was just like, I can't figure out kind of what the most likely game flow is going to be. So therefore, I just can't play any of the Seattle guys. And that was, a huge mistake. I think I had to that was kind of the stand I took, that I guess like Seattle passing, was going to be like a game where Seattle just bashes Chris Carson against the Tampa Bay run defense, and that didn't happen. And I got nowhere in tournaments and kind of like just got on the inside of some double up lines on the outside of others, and just mostly like break even week. But yeah, now feeling, I guess, lucky to survive not having any Russ or Lockett. And yeah, definitely, I think want to try to kind of learn from what I think was that mistake that I made, and just like, and there's clearly just such a high game, like trying to just avoid it because you can't figure out like what the most probable game script is going to be is probably not the best move. Like, I think like we have New Orleans, Atlanta coming up this week, and I don't know. I don't think New Orleans is like quite as like commit to the run if ahead as Seattle, but definitely don't want to be fading some of these high total games, especially on kind of a small slate, just because I'm unable to clearly kind of understand or project what the game environment is going to be. So yeah, hopefully going to learn from that moving forward.
Yeah, we have a lot of situations that are really similar. I luckily got the Wilson and Lockett in the cash game lineup for FanDuel, but didn't get it on DraftKings. And again, like there's so many things I've looked at from this week's perspective while building lineups. I'm like, man, this feels really similar to last week. So I'm excited to kind of talk about it with you and get your thoughts. And maybe we can fix some of those mistakes we feel like we have made, because there's definitely some that I feel like I made, at least on the perspective of DraftKings for sure. But yeah, before we do that, let's talk about some a little bit of review here. Like we said, we talked about the Seahawks stack and everything. One stack I think that it was pretty good last week. One thing that I would look at is going Christian McCaffrey with the Carolina Panthers. I don't know if you saw how great that's been this season, but it's been absolutely phenomenal. Like that's one thing that I noticed that in the Week 9 review. Like, listen, you got to love what Christian McCaffrey and the Carolina defense is doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll probably get to it in the correlation section, but that is like a really well correlated offense, and I think typically you don't see like complementary receivers like DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel kind of correlate well, and certainly not with like a workhorse running back like McCaffrey. Like the idea that they could kind of succeed in tandem seems unlikely, but the data is there to suggest that that's a pretty viable stack, and like definitely one I want to be paying attention to moving forward. I think they have a pretty interesting matchup against Green Bay this week, and it was definitely there. I had both those receivers in cash, and that kind of bailed me out from not being on any of the Seattle guys. Spending down a receiver, but getting the production from those two guys.
Yeah, that's definitely something we'll touch on more in the correlations part, because it's something you have to worry about again this week. So it's really interesting. What are some other things that really stuck out to you last week? We had Nick Chubb in the Browns. That offense, man, it really squandered. The Dolphins got their first win. What are some things that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I mean, Dolphins getting there is interesting, and I don't know. I think there's reason to have some pessimism with that offense moving forward. It's like Preston Williams is really looking like one of their emerging talents, and to see him go down, we would think could open up some opportunities for some of the other guys, but I just feel like the talent behind, and with Walton going, not that I think Walton was like a great running back or anything, but the Dolphins are getting a little thin, and I don't know. I mean, the prices are quite low, so maybe that's somewhere we can go. Interesting. Just Detroit has really, Matt Patricia has kind of done an about face following the injury to Kerryon Johnson. I think his, that offense going so pass heavy since Kerryon went down has been pretty interesting, and that's something I think we might want to try to ride moving forward. And on the other side of that Seattle game, just Tampa Bay kind of continuing those receivers to do what they do in terms of, one going off in a huge way and the other, putting up a real dud. And, it's interesting, like Seattle was such a perfect kind of double stack offense with Lockett and Metcalf, just figuring to get, so much of Russ's passes, but kind of sharing them. And, I thought like going into week 9, I really had no interest in trying to double stack on the Tampa Bay side, just because of the way those receivers have worked together. And I don't know, I think like moving forward, Tampa Bay, like I want to, have stake in a lot of the games that they're playing in, but from a stacking standpoint, it does feel like a team right now that we can only single stack moving forward, unless we kind of see these guys, Evans and Godwin, be able to, work together and kind of share in kind of an equitable split, Tampa Bay's passing attack. Be interesting to see moving forward. But again, we'll kind of get to that, I think, in the correlation section. So.
Yeah, definitely seems like a spot, man, where it's just like play 50% Evans, play 50% Godwin, and then you're fine. That's crazy to think, but that's kind of what people are just joking about. And it's like just coming true every single week. I had one other thing I wanted to get to here. It was Kyler Murray, man. Like Kyler's been really, really good, and he's someone we're gonna obviously touch on this week. And to see what Kyler did against the Niners, he was pretty solid in the whole Cliff Kingsbury experience. Overall, I think it's working out. I think this is something it's not like fetch, right? This is catching on here. So, what do you think of Kyler and Kingsbury here?
Yeah, man. I was playing that showdown slate and kind of begrudgingly had Kyler in there, and I was just like, San Francisco, they're probably the second best pass defense behind New England. And also just, shut down quarterbacks who are, gaining fantasy points on scrambles. And I just thought it was, a total dud spot for Kyler. And he really, it wasn't the case. He's looking legit out there. And a quarterback with the running upside that he offers, is pretty awesome. And a guy we want to be rostering, at the right price and in the right matchups. Certainly got that matchup against Tampa Bay this week. I think also like we could, I don't know if Kingsbury will do it, but I would love to see Kyler deployed even more as a ground threat. You look at how Baltimore uses Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's a 100-yard threat every game, and Kyler, when given the opportunity, seems like he has, the skill set and potential to, just be like a massive value on the ground. And doesn't seem like, Arizona's giving him too many like runs by design, and that might, Kyler is, a much smaller guy than Lamar Jackson, but man, I mean, yeah, Kyler getting it done through the air, and it feels like he hasn't even really reached his ceiling on the ground. So yeah, very, very intrigued by him. And yeah, I mean, DraftKings doesn't seem to, they kind of gave him that initial bump into the mid sixes and haven't really moved him since. So yeah, I mean, Kyler, great this week, and moving forward, I'm not sure what kind of his matchups are down the line, but yeah, looking like it's working there, and getting Christian Kirk back. I mean, yeah, Kyler primed, I think, for a really strong end of 2019.
All right. Anything else you want to touch upon with the Week 9 review? You want to dive into some correlations here?
Yeah, we can talk kind of Week 9 review through a correlation lens.
Yeah, so I think one thing that, like, listen, if you haven't heard yet, Russell Wilson, the Lockett, and Metcalf, like, that's just like the prime thing to target, right? Because the reason why is all the targets are condensed on those guys. It's not too hard to predict, right? One reason why we don't like the Niners is because who is Jimmy Garoppolo throwing to a touchdown to, right? Or are they running the ball? Like, there's so many different options, and obviously we get worried with Seattle that they can run the ball a lot too. But the thing is, if they are trailing, then they are passing, and when they're passing, we know where the targets are going. So here's the question I got to give you, Stewart. Like, what do we kind of do with Seattle going forward? Are they just guys who are plug and play? And how's that kind of work for you?
I mean, like we said at the top of the show, like Seattle does, when they get a lead, like to run the ball a lot. So, I mean, I think they're always in play in tournaments because, if kind of the unlikely game script of them going, playing from behind or whatever does pan out, like, I mean, you're in such a great spot. I think in cash, I want to be pretty careful about the games that I'm really trying to stack them in, and making sure, we're not doing it in games where they can just be projected to jump out to an early lead, because, Brian Schottenheimer and Pete Carroll, given the opportunity, I think will, run Chris Carson 20, 25 times, as, ineffective as that may be. But I mean, if we can get Seattle in a game where we think they're going to pass, or like I said, in tournaments where even if it's an unlikely kind of game script, still just worth kind of taking that correlated dart throw. I mean, one thing I love about Seattle, like we know the Wilson to, let me just sort on Russ. We know the Wilson to Lockett correlation. We know the Russ to Metcalf correlation. I don't think that really surprises too many people, but what I think really makes them a great, team stack is that Metcalf and Lockett also correlate very strongly. I think you really don't, that's not like, the receiver to quarterback correlation is pretty standard. There's some weird instances where like receivers and quarterbacks negatively correlate. This isn't one of them, but the fact that Lockett and Metcalf correlate so strongly is, I'm not going to say unique, but somewhat rare. And I think when you can get, a trio of guys that just have so much positive correlation, like that's a stack we really want to target, especially with double stacks. There's some other, strong passing attacks with talented receivers that, the quarterback kind of positively correlates with his receivers, but our receivers negatively correlate such that, not that we can't play that stack, but the idea of playing, a double stack of like, Godwin, Evans, and Winston is just like not that desirable because, Godwin and Evans actually have this negative correlation that makes it somewhat unlikely that, they pop off kind of in the same game. So we can go there with a single stack, but I mean, the kind of positive receiver correlation that Seattle has, I mean, is really great, right? So like looking here at, so far in 2019, like Jameis's big games have kind of come with Evans, and like Godwin has had big games maybe independent of how Jameis performs. So, I do kind of like Evans as, a true Jameis stacking option, as where Godwin is maybe a more viable, like one-off play kind of to fill out a roster where you're not constructing around Jameis. But it becomes quite difficult to play a Tampa Bay double stack where we're going Evans and Godwin, because they just negatively correlate like so strongly where, if one has a great game, the other is just unlikely to really succeed.
Now, here's a question on that, Stewart. Is that
randomness between both of those like different like receivers? Like the Bucs ones negatively correlate, and the Seattle one is positive correlate. Is that some randomness? And is that also the price tags on the Seattle receivers just being cheaper, because they were cheaper to start out the year, and obviously they're still trying to catch up to the Bucs price tags, and the Bucs price tags have gotten have increased and increased and increased. But I think that plays some part into it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not. It's not really scaled to price tag, but price is scaled to like kind of norm performance of these players. And right, like you said, I mean, like Godwin and Evans are priced up because kind of their mean performance over time is higher. So it just means that like it takes more, I guess, for both of them to have a good game, right? Like for both of them to have a great game relative to their norm, it just requires, 50% more kind of fantasy points for them. So yeah, it's a good point. I think there's definitely a case to be made there. And we talked about Carolina receivers having kind of good positive correlation. That's also like, not a top tier kind of priced and just average performance stack. But I do also think it's really like a function of, as well, maybe the quarterback and perhaps just the coaching scheme. Like Russ is is just like a really great quarterback who's not really locking on to any one receiver. He's kind of taking the opportunities as they come. And, I think he just does a better job of kind of sharing the ball around. Also, like, I think Lockett is kind of more of, I guess, Metcalf and Lockett are downfield threats, but they also seem to work fairly well in kind of medium depth, targets, as we're like Godwin and Evans are very kind of different, I think, in terms of their, the routes that they run. And it's kind of, sometimes you just see like teams are maybe, I don't know, I can't tell if it's really like Tampa Bay scheming to look downfield or look mid route, or if teams are scheming to allow Tampa Bay, catches underneath or giving up, more risk over the top. Not really sure there, but it's I don't know, something I'm kind of keeping in my mind as I'm, building some of these tournament lineups, figuring out, how heavy do we want to stack, and kind of, I think we want to try to, stack around games, but do so smartly and not, build stacks that are just, especially kind of at the receiver position, build double stacks that are just unlikely to really reach kind of seal, where both those receivers are unlikely to reach their ceilings in the same game. So this Tampa Bay team is kind of one of those instances where the data would suggest that, it's unlikely for both these two guys to pop off in the same game.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue. We can kind of jump into some week 10 correlations here. And this is what we're going to do. We'll try and be as quick as possible. And then we're going to get to the picks, going position by position. But we're going to go game by game here on the RotoGrinders lineup page I'm going to use. And as we go through, we're just going to kind of pick out correlations. Like if you're, kind of building through the lineup builder here, like correlations that just stick out to you that you definitely would want to look to play. So let's kind of go through and do that now. And first up, we got the spot we're talking about, the Bucs and Cardinals. And this is one that might take some time to talk about, but I think my initial read first seeing this was, okay, I'm going to stack Kyler, I'm going to stack Christian Kirk, and I'm going to run it back with Evans and Godwin. That's my first lean that I saw with building lineups. How about you, Stewart?
Yeah, I'm not that familiar with how Kyler has been correlating with the receivers. I'll pull it up right now. But yeah, I mean, I think, Tampa Bay single stacking one of those receivers is perfectly viable. And then stacking some, single stacking with Jameis on the Tampa Bay side, perfectly viable. As discussed, I'm not super interested in double stacking Tampa Bay. And then alternatively, like stacking Kyler with at least one of his receivers and possibly two. So like Fitz is a guy who Kyler's been really, correlating strongly with so far in 2019. Interesting that like Kirk is a guy whose value seems really strong. I'm surprised that him and Kyler have such a negative correlation. you do typically, or not typically, but you kind of see that sometimes with like Kirk's, just catches balls so close to the line of scrimmage, is good for like 3 or 4 bubble screens a game. And these are low ADOT receivers, Tyler Boyd, Cole Beasley, guys who we typically don't see like strong correlation with their quarterbacks. So, I don't know. I think if I were to look on the Kyler side, probably going Fitz, Kyler. These other guys I'm kind of ignoring. They're just, they have high correlation, but that's kind of this thing, like you said, where their price is just so low that, just like a marginally better Demir Bird game with a good Kyler game is going to give them huge correlation. So, probably looking Fitz. I'd be interested also to see like how David Johnson correlates with Kyler. I do think he, Cliff Kingsbury seems to want to get David Johnson involved, kind of in the passing game, running some plays out.
They're gonna run Johnson and Drake this week, and they're gonna get both involved. So it sounds like you're gonna get that David Johnson in the slot, and it's also worth noting Christian Kirk played more outside receiver last week than he has all season. So I think you're gonna see Fitz in the slot, you're gonna see some David Johnson in the slot, and you're gonna see Fitz on the outside more, which might get you some deeper ADOT targets.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. Well, I like that double stack. David Johnson correlating really nicely with Kyler. Fitz correlating nicely with Kyler. Not sure what the Fitz David Johnson is, but I think that double stack and running it back with maybe Godwin makes a lot of sense. Like I kind of like Godwin as a run back option because he doesn't have super strong correlation with Jameis. So like you could catch a good Godwin game on a bad Jameis game. Evans has that really strong, David and Larry with 50% correlation, like that's pretty strong. I like that build of Kyler, DJ, Fitz, Godwin, or using the positively correlated receiver on Tampa Bay side, going Evans, Winston, and then trying to run it back with Fitz or DJ or Christian Kirk. Maybe Christian Kirk, since he's got that negative Kyler correlation, right? You can have like a good Christian Kirk game, but not a great Kyler game. So you're getting leverage on, those people who are playing Kyler.
All right. That's some good stuff there, Stewart. Let's move on to the next game. We got Chiefs, we got Titans. And this is one where I'm just like, okay, I think we can mix and match some. We can maybe do a Tannehill, run it back with a Kelsey and have Tannehill with one of the receivers, but it is a 48.5 total. So I don't think we should ignore it completely.
Yeah. It's certainly you kind of like want to really do a full game stack, like a team like Kansas City, right? Great stack team. Tennessee, I have kind of my doubts about, and like Derrick Henry's a guy who, I'm inclined to play against like, bad run defenses. Kelsey, bad run defenses where we can project Tennessee to stay in the game, but I don't like Tennessee or Kansas City is a good matchup in terms of what they allow, like per touch. But I just think Tennessee is going to be forced to pass pretty early. So it's a tough game to stack on the Tennessee side. But we could kind of go with some like mini Kansas City stacks. They're tough though to stack because like they're one of the, as we're Seattle or Tampa Bay, or these teams where we like know kind of where, the aerial production is going to go. Like Kansas City, it's tough to, clearly project where that is going to go. And like, I don't know, Kelsey, Hill, they have been together for a long time. So we could even go back to like 2018. I think, historically have had like modest negative correlation. So it's like not a stack where I'm like, oh, I definitely want to be pairing these guys up together, but it's not like so negative where I'm just like, you can't play Kelsey and Hill. And I think it's an interesting, stack where Mahomes coming back, I could see, Kelsey hasn't been super great so far this year. But he's like, we know, with Mahomes in, like he's been a very viable play in the past. And I'm not really convinced that he's like, on some catastrophic age curve. Like I think we could go back to Kelsey Mahomes, maybe even running like Kelsey, Tyreek Mahomes, coming back. I think kind of that's probably the spot I would be looking. I think there are games I'd rather stack than this game, but the point totals there, I think they're implied at up around like 27 points, which is pretty solid. So somewhere I think you could look. I probably will be looking elsewhere, but I don't think it's out of play by any means.
Yeah, and I know a game you're not going to be looking. You're not looking Bills Browns. I mean, maybe you do Chubb with the Browns D, and that's it. Call it a day.
I mean, not really. Like, I mean, the Bills D is I don't really want any part of this game.
It's a catch me up game. We can move on. It's okay. So don't waste your money burning on that. Here's one that I feel like kind of is a catch me up too. It's like, do you just do Ravens Bengals? Do you just do Lamar Jackson and the Ravens D and that's it? I don't know. Maybe some Marquise Brown. I don't like this too much, but what do you think?
Yeah. I'm with you. I mean, Lamar is a really great guy that we could play naked. So I'm interested in maybe trying to deploy Lamar and kind of some naked, games and maybe try to get like some weird, like we talked about Carol. I kind of was thinking this morning of the idea of like, I really do like those Carolina skill players, but don't love Kyle Allen. So I wonder if like a Carolina skill player stack, but then like Lamar naked could be in play. Just kind of a thought I was tossing around this morning, but I mean, Marquise and Lamar correlate really strongly. I think it's worth, if you're running a lot of lineups, putting some Lamar Marquise in there. Marquise Brown is a guy who isn't getting a ton of targets or on the field, for every even Baltimore play or even kind of an overwhelming majority. But, we know that he's got this massive big play upside, and we know that Cincinnati is prone to give up a ton of plays, downfield. So I think it's definitely worth some looks, but we would need, and probably if we are going like Marquise Lamar, we'd want to run it back with someone on the Cincinnati side, just because if that game is going to go where Lamar is still passing the ball downfield to Marquise Brown, Cincinnati is going to find a way, going to need to find a way to keep pace some way, somehow.
And you probably go Tyler Boyd, just run it back with him. There's no AJ Green, and then just call it a day. Don't get too cute. Maybe Tate, because Tate's hit some red zone targets.
Yeah. I like the Boyd call. I'm wondering, I'd be interested. God, Mark Ingram is just such a trap. No correlation there. I've in the past, I think on the show, even I've plugged like a Lamar Ingram stack, but I think that was probably a dumb plug. And, I think, I don't know. I'm not too interested in stacking this game, but Lamar naked, I think is a really, really interesting play.
All right, let's go to Jets Giants. And listen, like, I thought this total would be higher. It's only 44.5. Tell me what you want to do here, Stewart, because I'm not loving it.
Yeah, from a stacking standpoint, not really. I think there's some intriguing kind of one-off plays, like particularly Rhett Ellison, just as a, salary saver to help you get to Christian McCaffrey this week.
You're not playing Jones and Rhett Ellison. I know. Come on, Stewart. No way.
I'm not playing Jones. No. That's the thing. From a stacking and correlation standpoint, this is a game I really want none of. Robbie Anderson is so tempting, but they just haven't been like looking his way that much. And I don't know, Darnold just seems very rattled and has been just much more. And Adam Gase as well, kind of just like that offense is not conducive to Robbie Anderson's skill set, and I think makes it tough to stack them. I'd love to see like Robbie Anderson with like Josh Allen. Like that would be, an interesting kind of, opportunity, but it's no point wasting kind of airtime talking about these hypotheticals. Yeah, not really a game I'm interested in from a stacking standpoint. Maybe some interesting one-off plays, but. Yeah,
definitely feels better for one-offs in DFS. Let's go to the one that's going to matter. Atlanta and the Saints. I think this one's awesome. You said it best. Matt Ryan I think is a guy that could be an interesting guy that you run back at quarterback that no one's going to play. Obviously, the Saints side, it's a 32.5 total. We're going to love the Breeze, the Kamara, to Michael Thomas. That's great. And then also with no Sanu there now, the targets are more condensed with Julio, Ridley, Hooper. Talk about this game.
Yeah. Atlanta will be playing for, we would assume is going to be playing from behind. And, I think for me, the guy like I'm most interested in on the Atlanta side is Calvin Ridley. When he gets kind of the opportunities, like he's so good. And I think with Mo Sanu gone, that like for the past year and a half, I think that's been kind of the rub against Ridley is there's Mo Sanu creeping and kind of stealing probably 2 targets or so from Ridley a game. But I mean, the guy's upside is massive. I mean, just at this point, we've seen enough data where like I'm fully in that, Matt Ryan's really looking for Ridley in the red zone or, kind of as his touchdown scorer. So yeah, I love Ridley. I don't know. We've kind of forgotten about Austin Hooper, but he's been a guy early on in the season Matt Ryan was looking to a lot. I'm intrigued by him from a kind of contrarian Atlanta standpoint. I think a lot of people will be looking to probably stack the New Orleans side and like run it back with Julio or Ridley. So running it back with a guy like, or even like Justin Gage kind of as like a, sneaky, cheap run back option. But, I do wonder if people are going to overlook Austin Hooper as, a kind of piece of that Atlanta passing attack that, could be a viable, way of bringing it back. But yeah, Ridley, I think, is the guy I'm most interested in. From like a, independent of kind of ownership and, being contrarian for sure.
Yep, agree with you on that. You can stack this one every which way. It's definitely the game to look at, and look for the, like you just kind of mentioned, the Ridley to Ryan. That's like something that could be really interesting, low-owned. Looking for the low-owned stacks within the game is a great idea. Let's go on to Lions and Bears, and I think there's only...
Can we go back and, I do want to talk a little bit about the New Orleans, is the side that I want to be stacking because they're one of these teams that just has, similar to Seattle last week, pieces that correlate very well with Drew Brees and correlate well with each other. And I think there's a number of different ways you can go with it. The correlation mixes that I'm looking at are Brees to his receivers, Ginn and Thomas, and Kamara, even though he's a running back, is correlated very well with Drew Brees, and Kamara to Thomas, at 0.3 correlation is pretty good. Ginn Kamara seems to be fairly uncorrelated, but I think there's a number of different ways you can go with this. And I guess the most popular will be probably Brees to Thomas or Brees to Thomas. But I think, an unconventional kind of quarterback, running back, receiver stack here works perfectly well. And I think you could go double receiver with Ginn, Ginn Thomas. We can kind of move on, but I did want to call out.
You're right. I think it's the obvious one. The one where I will mention Murray. Does he slide into the Ingram role more so now? We lose as much Kamara as we've been getting. It's more of a question to ask. We don't know the answer.
For sure. Kind of unclear. I do wonder. I'm not sure if our app will match these two, but Ingram and Kamara did have games last year. Yeah, it's not going to work with those two guys. Ingram's no longer on the Saints, but Ingram, I do remember Ingram and Kamara had some pretty great, games where they went off together. I think an interesting stack would be Michael Thomas would be, a Latavius Kamara stack. I think it's somewhat unlikely, but be an interesting way of going there. I don't know. Kamara succeeded though with with Ingram there last year. I definitely think we'll see Murray's workload increase to the extent that it does. I think it's really the is the question of interest, and I don't know that I have the most insight to answer that at this juncture, but I don't know. We'll see. Definitely something to kind of probably the key to figuring out what to do with New Orleans is understanding how Murray's workload kind of factors in with these other two or some of these other Saints players.
Yep. We got 4 games left here. We got the Lions. We got the Bears, 41.5 total. This is one I think you can really, if you wanted to cross off, but I think you can do the Montgomery to the Bears D correlation. Wouldn't hate that. And I think you can do Montgomery and then run it back with a Galladay or Marvin Jones. It's just tough. The Bears D. What do you want to do there with the passing game?
I think you could go Montgomery, Bears D. I think I would be more interested in trying to do Montgomery with a Detroit receiving stack. Trying to maybe you go Stafford and one of his receivers, Galladay or Jones, and then running back Montgomery.
It's just a 41.5 total, man. Like I thought I was going to do it last week. Like I remember looking at the Bears and Eagles last week and I said, okay, that Trubisky to Allen Robinson could work, right? The Eagles secondary is so bad. And then I just was like, this total went from 45 to 41. What am I doing? So I don't know. The total's so low for me.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of with you there. I didn't see it was quite that low, but yeah, it doesn't make it super appealing. And I don't know, Chicago's pass defense is quite good. I think the way to get to Chicago is on the ground and with no carry on. Like, you have some concerns about Detroit's ability to get there. If you are stacking, one interesting kind of where correlation reversed last week is historically we have seen Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay strongly negative correlate, and similar to like Godwin and Evans, I don't love double stacking Galladay and Jones with Stafford, but last week we saw both of them hit big games. So kind of an interesting note, just like, these are trends, but they're not, rules. And, sometimes you do see negatively correlated players kind of hit those games. But yeah, I mean, good call with 41 does seem like not the most appealing game. It looks like it's going to be windy too, cold and windy, which isn't,
it's not
great.
Ideal.
Yeah, not ideal. So maybe a game to stay away from.
Let's go from one unappealing game to another. We got Dolphins Colts, where I think it's just really simple. I think you play a Mac and the Colts D, or you run like a Mac with a Parker or a Mac with a Gesicki for a cheap tight end, and then that's it. I don't know what else to really do.
Yeah, I was talking with you the other day about Colts guys and how they correlate nicely, but yeah, I mean with I don't even know what the spread is, probably double digits at this point. It's hard to envision the Colts going to the passing game that heavily. I think like a super contrarian stack. I mean, just take like probably like some like 5% kind of game environment would be like running a a Miami receiver or like tight end Gesicki, but I don't know. Yeah. And then like, I do think historically Brissett, and we can, replace, I guess, Hoyer with Brissett from a correlation standpoint. He's like correlated nicely with like Ebron and Pascal have kind of worked well together. No T.Y. Hilton. Like there's makings for kind of some interesting contrarian pieces there. But I mean, I think ultimately this game is just going to be sunk by, Miami's inability to make this competitive. And, Marlon Mack, Colts D is, an interesting, good way you could kind of get that correlation in there and then go like with a primary receiving stack with, some of the other games that are on the slate. But yeah, we can skip over this game. It's not too much here.
Yeah, let's go to Packers-Panthers. Talk to the people about the Panthers correlation, how you can work that with McCaffrey, Moore, and Samuel. And but my favorite correlation in this game, it's going McCaffrey to Devontae Adams, doing that like single stack there. I think that's my favorite thing. It's expensive, but man, I think it's a really good one this week.
Yeah, this was the Rodgers Adams was what I was on last week, and correlation is good when it hits, but the kind of the other edge of that sword is that like when both players floor out, they floor out together, and you saw that last week with Rodgers and Adams, where they both hit floor games, and like you're okay with that in tournaments because there's no point in being middle of the pack with an uncorrelated stack. You'd rather have that correlation and coin flip, they hit and kind of push you towards the top of the pool, or a coin flip, they fail and you finish last place, and like that's okay in tournaments. So yeah, I mean the Green Bay Rodgers to Adams have correlated very strongly in the past, so it's kind of an interesting kind of primary single stack I'm interested in going with, and then running back McCaffrey, totally with you there. That seems like a fairly probable game script and one that could really benefit like both sides of the ball. I think we've talked about a bit already, the positive correlation between Moore and Curtis Samuel. Pretty interesting. I mean, you don't see that too often with receivers, but we have it here. So, I think there's a number of different ways you could go with this game. Like you said, you could do Rodgers, Adams, McCaffrey. You could kind of, take a stand maybe and say like just McCaffrey it's not like a stand I feel super great about and probably won't be taking in cash, but in tournaments, you could build some lineups around this idea that McCaffrey doesn't find the end zone. He gets vultured by some of these guys. I mean, both Moore and Samuel, do get, it seems like 1 to 2 rushes a game. So maybe they like vulture a rushing touchdown from McCaffrey. So, you could take like this contrarian build of fading McCaffrey, not like full fade, but just in these lineups, some lineups where you're avoiding McCaffrey, going Samuel Moore, and maybe going like Aaron Jones on the other side. Like, Aaron Jones' price is up, and it sucks that from a fantasy standpoint that like Jamal Williams is cutting so much into his workload. But I mean, so far this year, Carolina has been a team that's been really bad against running backs on the ground. So I think that there's a number of different pieces here that intrigue me. I think kind of like you said, Rodgers, Adams, McCaffrey is probably like the core, a stack that you want to build around, but there's a number of like alternative, builds you could go with where you neglect McCaffrey in favor of Samuel Moore. You don't go Green Bay passing, but go Aaron Jones or even Jamal Williams running. Number of different ways you can go with this one, but yeah, definitely like this game and kind of the pieces that are in it.
Yeah, let's go to the last one. It's a 43.5 total. It's Rams Steelers. And my initial look on it was, makes more sense on FanDuel to maybe do like a Samuels and a Cup stack because Samuels is really cheap over there. Feels a little pricier on DK, but I don't know. I don't know what to exactly do with this game. I mean, Cooper Kupp's been amazing, and I think he could be one guy you definitely want to incorporate in your stacks because the Steelers get killed in the slot.
Yeah, I haven't looked super closely at this game from a stack standpoint. I think historically, like Goff has pretty bad home road splits.
He's horrible on the road. I mean, it's in Pittsburgh. It's a weird game. I don't even know what we want to do with it. 43.5 total might say it all, for being honest.
I know. I'm probably not interested in it from a stacking standpoint. I don't know. The Cooks injury is kind of a non-factor for me. Like, he hasn't been that involved in the offense so far this year, so I'm not like taking the approach of like, oh no, Brandon Cooks, like, just give me the Woods Cup Goff stack and just like that's where it's all going to go. Because in Pittsburgh D seems legit. Jalen Samuels, I'm interested in cash or like as a one-off play, but he gets a lot of his value from these plays that don't really figure to benefit like Mason Rudolph in any way. And I also just don't want to play Mason Rudolph.
Don't play Mason Rudolph. That sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah. So yeah, they have these, that Los Angeles has intriguing pieces, but yeah, I'm probably not going to be going this game from a stacking standpoint. Maybe looking to like Cup or Samuels is kind of a one-off like filler piece in other lineups, but yeah, probably not going to try to make any correlated plays here.
Alrighty, we're gonna talk about like our picks for the week, who we like at each position, kind of go through that a little bit. But before we do that, I did want to talk about we got college basketball starting up over here on RotoGrinders. It starts tonight. We got promos over here for the season starting up. It's $299 for the season for the March Madness package, or you can try $6.99 a day or $69.99 a month. This is provided by Varnkiss. He's absolutely awesome at college basketball. I've tried his product out. It's a great product, so check it out if you want to get on some college basketball DFS action. Let's dive in now. Let's talk about the pick, Stewart, and we'll start with quarterback. And I guess it's like, man, like how do we pass Lamar Jackson this week? It's too tough not to against Cincinnati. The quarterbacks I'm looking at, I see Lamar as a top play. I see Kyler and Winston are two guys to consider too. And Tannehill might be the cheaper option. Also mix in maybe Drew Brees there. But those are kind of the five-ish quarterbacks I'm really looking at in my player pool. How about you?
Yeah, I think like the question, I love those guys. Lamar just in such a smash spot, and his ability to produce with his legs, makes me less concerned about, some sort of blowout risk. Jameis and Kyler, I think just both. I think that's a great environment for both quarterbacks. What I think is going to be tough with quarterback this week is just how much can you allocate towards quarterback? Like, I think I want to go in cash. Like, I think I want to go McCaffrey again.
It's a huge problem, Stewart, like massive. Like I'm having trouble getting up to the top quarterback. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Like the guys I'm prioritizing around are McCaffrey, Kamara, and Thomas. Right now, I got to think more about Kamara because the Murray thing is interesting. The Latavius thing is interesting. Yeah, and I mean, like figuring out how much money you have to spend at quarterback is tough. Like I would love to get to Lamar Jackson, but it just means that you're going to, have to play like just bottom of the barrel receivers. Or you might have to come off like Kamara or Thomas, which, I don't want to do, or you might have to come off McCaffrey. So I don't know. I think I'm probably just going to still there's not like any cheap options that are really presenting themselves. Like Tannehill is maybe the cheap guy that I would look at, but feels like a bit of an uncomfortable play. And I might try to kind of jam in. I think we talked about him to a pretty lengthy extent. Kyler does feel like at 6'5", like he's fairly, reachable without having to, just go like sub 4 receivers after Thomas. So he's, a guy that I think fits into the build quite nicely. Lamar's great at 7'3". Any other week I wouldn't, I'd probably make that effort to get up to him, but it's going to have, if you do go McCaffrey, Kamara, Thomas, and go to Lamar, I mean, you're going to have to be making some serious sacrifices elsewhere. So
we need injuries, Stewart. We need some, we're not cheering for him, but we need like someone to be like, this is not my week. Let's open up a cheap receiver. We need things to open up here. So hopefully the Friday injury report really comes through for us. And we want to make that all work.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to running backs now. And listen, McCaffrey, I think he's a guy you plug in. You don't mess with it. Play him. Like it's dumb not to. His floor is just so freaking good. I get it in tournaments, right? The price is expensive, but you can find running backs to like, and there's definitely some to like. It's perfectly fine. I think the real debate then at the top is to Barkley or to Kamara. And the more and more I keep thinking about it, I'm thinking it's Barkley. And the reason why I keep thinking it's Barkley is there's no Evan Ingram. Daniel Jones has been horrible with the ball, right? He is turning the ball over left and right. And I think this is going to be something they're really talking about a lot at practice. And they're playing the Jets, right? This is like the Super Bowl for both these teams. Who's going to be on the, the headlines in New York? You want to be on the back page where it says, Giants win. And I think they're going to really ride Barkley out. I think this is going to be one of those games where they just feed the beast. Like, I think you're going to see so many touches for him. And that's my one worry with Kamara is the touches. The Saints are thinking big picture. They're thinking Super Bowl, man. They're not thinking about, this game against Atlanta, who's a terrible team. They know that they can just go up and just run the ball with Latavius Murray. So what do you think of my sales pitch on Barkley over Kamara?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very compelling. I think the floor on Kamara is somewhat worrisome for the reasons you said. I mean, I get the sense that the injury isn't the issue with Kamara. He seems to be like, all systems go, but yeah, just New Orleans being smart about it. And Latavius has been, awesome. And Atlanta's been atrocious. So, if you're a smart coach like Sean Payton is, like, why not kind of go to that equitable split when they had Ingram last year? Like that was, the approach they took. And I think they have, a guy who comps really well to Ingram and, like what's tough, like if Latavius wasn't effective out of the backfield catching passes, I think I'd feel more comfortable with Kamara. But the fact that Latavius Latavius can do just about everything that Kamara can do, maybe not quite as well, but like there's no, Latavius can be used in kind of pass catching roles. And, it's not like New Orleans has to go with Kamara, every third down or, in the 2-minute drill. Like they can use Latavius for that. Something I'm going to have to continue to think about. And I don't know that, we're going to have a super clear picture until maybe Sunday morning.
Yeah. You know who else is there too? Taysom Hill, man. He's always down to try and steal some touchdown equity.
Yeah, no, I hope not.
They are projected to score 32 points. Keep in mind, and the salary does matter, but this is like the conversation you're having, trying to figure out if the risk is worth the price difference.
Yeah,
I get it. Kamara is super talented. I love the kid, but it's tough.
I will say, at 8.8, like the price hike on, or, the salary up from Kamara to Barkley, like isn't insignificant. Like I'm having a hard time constructing around Thomas, McCaffrey, Kamara and finding like not, a bottom of the barrel quarterback. Like if you go Saquon over Kamara, like even more so, I mean, you really have to squeeze. One guy we haven't talked about, I mean, Jalen Samuels' price is up, but like I think I saw like even now like Benny Snell is questionable, or is he out or something? Like, I mean, Pittsburgh, I mean, their running backs are totally decimated. And
yeah, Snell's out. Edmonds, Edmonds is doubtful. That's the thing. If there's no Edmonds, actually no, that's Chase. I'm sorry, Trey Edmonds. I'm looking for. Let me see if I can find him. He is questionable. So like if Trey Edmonds isn't there, that's going to be pretty big, right? Because against Indy, he had 12 rushing attempts. I mean, those are 12 attempts that go right to Samuel. And also keep in mind, I know the price hike is on DraftKings. FanDuel, you get Samuel at 6.2, which is similar to the DraftKings price, which makes him just like a plug and play over there on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about Samuel also is like, you don't even like need his rushing. Like the rushing is nice, but you're getting Jalen Samuels because he's going to get, 10 targets a game. And I think like he just fits perfectly with Mason Rudolph, who's like not a guy who's taking shots downfield, like is also holding the ball way too long. I mean, it's just like a match made in heaven. And the price hike is doesn't make it quite as easy as playing him last week at 4, but I don't think it's quite enough given especially, I mean, obviously like DraftKings can't know the injuries coming out, but if it's just like Jalen Samuels and some practice squad running back, like, I like him a lot. I think he would be kind of an interesting play coming down from either of those 8 guys.
Yeah, I agree. I think coming down from them to Samuels isn't a bad idea. And I heard Levitan say this on the Mayo show. I think he said it best. We don't want to have to predict game scripts, right? And we don't have to predict the game script with Samuels. He's going to get the catches, the rushes. It doesn't matter, right? He's just going to get that opportunity, which is phenomenal there. Let's go to another running back who we do have to guess the game script, and it's not hard to guess it this week. It's Marlon Mack. Against Miami. One thing I think I heard last week that I thought was really interesting was they asked Eric Ebron kind of before the game. They said, Ebron, you excited? No, Hilton, they're going to get some more targets. Like, how do you feel about that? And he said, to be honest, I don't think I'm getting more targets. I think, I think number 25 is going to be touching the ball more. So he pretty much told him what was going to go down, and he got 21, rushing attempts. And I expect against Miami, they're just going to feed Marlon Mack. I think he's an amazing tournament play. You just worry about the PPR opportunity for him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, tournaments looking awesome. I mean, he does have 100 yards and 2, maybe even 3 rushing touchdowns in him against Miami. From like a, purely like kind of median, median per dollar standpoint in cash, like the price is pretty high on him. Like they really, priced him up aggressively against Miami, which makes him not quite like, in my opinion, a slam dunk for cash, but for tournaments. Yeah. I mean, and I love that Colts D Marlon Mack stack is like a really kind of subtle way to get some nice correlation, but not like have to, fully anchor to that game. You can just get that nice, like subtle piece of correlation and then build your primary stack around, some other, more pass-centric game. So, yeah, I love Marlon Mack in tournaments. And I think he's definitely viable in cash. He's just kind of at a weird, like, sandwiched price where he's, like, between Saquon and Kamara, but also more than, like, Jalen Samuels or even, like, a David Montgomery. But, yeah, definitely think Marlon Mack's a guy to be thinking about in cash, probably a little more so in tournaments for sure.
Yep, for sure. Let's see. Any other running backs you want to discuss? I mean, Le'Veon Bell in this mid-tier is sort of kind of interesting. Don't hate him. The cheapies that I liked were Singletary. I thought he was interesting against the Browns at 5Ks. We get more snaps. And the other guy was, and hold your nose, it's because we're trying to make stuff work. It's Ronald Jones. They have a massive total, right? Getting enough opportunity. He got 18 carries last week. The week before he got 11. 18 though, it's trending upward, and he's been, okay, and he's cheap enough.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys that, like, look, we've talked about, if we want to get some of these premier skill players and also not, pay down at quarterback, we're going to have to find some running backs that are cheap, and Ronald Jones seems like a viable candidate for sure. Seems to be kind of the preferred running back at this point for Tampa Bay, and Arizona, not a great defense. I think more intriguing is just their pace, which has been down a little bit. I think has been trending down over the course of the season. But yeah, 4-3, I mean, he doesn't have to do that much to get there. Singletary seems to just be in full command of the Buffalo backfield, which is, is good. And I think he is effective kind of catching the ball out of the backfield, which isn't really Josh Allen's MO, but still, if you can kind of get, three receptions on top of, any sort of ground equity you can provide, like that's, a good way to go at 5, can help you kind of jam in some of those expensive guys. Ty Johnson's like a guy who I wish he just had a more stable kind of hold on Detroit's running back shares. But Chicago is a good defense against the pass, but is pretty attackable or more attackable on the ground, and also ceding a decent amount of targets to running backs. At 4-1, I don't know, it feels like Ty Johnson's floor is pretty low. But median projection could see him, not so much like winning, just like comfortably putting you at the top of a double up or, just guaranteeing you a head-to-head win. But if he helps you get to some of those more expensive guys, I think could be a viable play down there at 4-1.
All righty, let's move on to the receiver position. And I guess talk about Michael Thomas. I was having trouble getting him in this week, but he's an amazing play. He's probably the best receiver option right below Evans and Godwin. Even Kupp's an amazing play. There's so many good receivers to pay up for this week. Yeah,
it's there's some really intriguing receivers. They're all they're all kind of at the top of the price scale, which I think is going to make it a position where I'm wanting to get to some of these expensive guys in tournaments and probably, not paying up so much at running back, but in cash, feels like you can only make one of those top tier receivers work. I am preferential to Thomas over Evans or Godwin in cash games, just because his floor is so much higher than both of those guys. Like, I love the Tampa Bay guys for tournament plays. And like you said, I mean, kind of going 50% Evans, 50% Godwin, like seems like a pretty foolproof approach. But in terms of cash, I mean, Michael Thomas's target floor is like 10 targets, like his bare, bottom floor is, 10 targets. His catch rate is insane. Like, it just seems like him failing to get to like 8 catches and 80 yards just seems impossible, and has just the nut matchup against Atlanta, and even if New Orleans jumps out to an early lead, like Thomas's route tree is so close to the line of scrimmage and such high catch rate balls that I just don't really think it's super likely for him to just get phased out of the game due to New Orleans blowout. So Michael Thomas probably prioritizing over jamming that second running back. Like, I think Thomas and McCaffrey are my priorities in lineup construction, and then maybe figuring out how to get kind of that second priced up running back feels like more of a secondary priority to Thomas for me. We touched on Devontae Adams. I mean, 6'9", very good price for him, and I think makes for an interesting stacking option given kind of the game that he's in. Christian Kirk, good price, figures to get just peppered with a lot of short targets, very catchable balls. I think his upside is, I don't know. Well, I don't think it is, I don't know. He has somewhat of a limited upside, I think, but, seems to have a really good floor. So those are kind of some of the plays I'm looking at. And also the Carolina receivers didn't seem to get too much of a price hike. So might think about going back there if I'm needing to save a receiver.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of receivers to like kind of, get in here at the 5K-ish range, like Ridley, DJ Moore, Christian Kirk, you mentioned him, Marquise Brown, you got Landry, Crowder. There's a lot of guys to mix and match in this range. Tyler Boyd's interesting. Curtis Samuel's in play. The Tennessee receivers, A.J. Brown. If Corey Davis is going to be out, we have him as questionable, missing practice. So there's a lot of guys to mix and match in this range. I'm thinking about maybe in cash mix and match in 3 of them, or just mixing, in with Michael Thomas. That's kind of what I'm thinking. And I think in tournaments, a lot of these guys are going to be, just littered throughout lineups.
Yeah, I would imagine so. A lot of really good plays, kind of at the top of the price scale. And if you are kind of going that jam them in approach at running back and wanting to pay up a quarterback, going to have to find some, cheap receivers to work in. Been trying to do a little bit of research to kind of key in on some guys, still some work to do, but Allen Hurns at the stone minimum.
I don't know if it's Allen Hurns week, but it is.
I mean, he just offers you an insane amount of savings. But I mean, look, I don't feel good about playing any of these sub 4 receivers, but I don't know if you want to go Thomas, McCaffrey, and either Kamara or Barkley, you're going to have to go with some sub 4 guys. I don't know. Demaryius Thomas has been getting pretty good, targets given target numbers, just given his price.
Those targets are just over his head every time, though. That's the problem.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm intrigued by Adam Humphries at 3.5. We got what's his name? Corey Davis is going to be out, or likely to be out.
Humphries at 3.5 is really interesting.
Yeah. Josh Reynolds, you could plug in. He was effective last week, kind of in Brandon Cook's relief duty. I don't think it's quite like the same spot that Josh Reynolds was in last year, since Los Angeles is going a little more 2 tight end sets, and Gerald Everett's kind of emerged as a reliable option in that offense. But again, if you gotta find somewhere to save, I don't think Josh Reynolds is the worst idea. So those are some of the guys I guess I'm looking at if I'm really going to try to save to get up to a couple of those premier running backs.
Alrighty, let's move on to the tight end position. And listen, I think it's a week. We talked about all these really good plays, and there's not many spots to save. This is where we're saving. I think on FanDuel you can get like a guy like a Kelsey in a top end tight end, but it's a lot more difficult on DraftKings, which means they're great tournament plays, right? Like Travis Kelce will probably go underowned. It's just going to probably happen. But yeah, I think we're really looking at guys like Doyle. We're looking at Gesicki, Everett. Those are probably like the 3 tight ends I'm keying in on. What about you?
Yeah, Doyle I like a lot. I think we looked at him last week, and he has pretty strong negative correlation with T.Y. Hilton, which would lead us to suggest, or lead us to maybe assume that the absence of Hilton will stands to really help Jack Doyle. Miami is a bit of a sieve in the secondary, but a little worried about that game script. And, DraftKings has brought up Doyle, not an insignificant amount. He's now at 3.6. Gesicki, very, very interested in his volume's been up the last few weeks, and Indianapolis defensively is a team that is actually pretty vulnerable at tight end. They give up a pretty high market share of targets to the tight end position. And, with Preston Williams gone, I mean, there's, some opportunity that's up for grabs. And I think given the price, the matchup, and the fact that, you would expect Miami to play from behind, Gesicki's in an interesting spot. And then, goddamn, Rhett Ellison down at 2.5, it's not somewhere I want to go, but we're kind of looking at a week where you're gonna have to take some stone minimum plays or near min plays, and with Ingram out, maybe Rhett Ellison finds his way to catch 3 or 4 balls, stumble into the end zone. If the salary's there, I think I would prefer to go up to Doyle or Gesicki, just because the floor on Rhett Ellison, feels like it's 1 catch, 0 catches, 2 catches, 10 yards type thing. But so low price.
Rhett Ellison has as many touchdowns as Odell Beckham this season, so he's just as good as him pretty much.
That's why they got rid of Beckham. They just had just to open Rhett Ellison, open opportunity for Rhett Ellison.
Yeah, but listen, you're right. It is intriguing. I wasn't like thinking. I didn't realize his price was like the 500 or less. But like, I don't know, if that 500 get you, up to Michael Thomas or something, or get you in that like last piece that you were looking for. Like if that 500 to get you Lamar Jackson, you might feel safer about that. Because listen, when we're playing Gesicki, we don't feel good about that. Like Doyle's like 1,100 more than Ellison, which is a huge price hike.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, would you rather play Jameis Ellison or Jameis Gesicki or Jackson Ellison?
Yeah, give me Jackson Ellison, I think.
Yeah, I mean, anyways, something to think about. But yeah, definitely, I think in cash a week to spend down a tight end so you can get to those premier running backs and receivers. But yeah, like you said, I mean, in tournaments, I think some of those high-priced tight ends, Kelsey, obviously, and I do like, the price point. I think few people are going to be going to like Austin Hooper or even like Jared Cook. And I kind of like how they fit in as, just good leverage spots as a part of that great game environment. So, paying up at tight end in tournaments, definitely not the worst idea. I've heard so.
Yeah, if I told you Travis Kelce, 6.4K, during the season, you'd be like, man, like we're jamming him in. It's just a really nice price tag, but it just doesn't fit the construction of the slate, in my opinion. But that means he's going to be lower on in tournaments, and there's a ton of opportunity there against the Titans. Stewart, we kind of got to get out of here, but before we do that, give the people a plug. Where can they find Advanced Sports Analytics, and what's the kind of the stuff you guys are doing over there? Yeah,
so advancedsportsanalytics.com. You can look us up on Twitter. We're posting, some kind of just applications of our tools on a week-by-week basis just to kind of give, non-subscribers kind of a look at some of the tools we offer and maybe how they can be used. But yeah, I mean, we have a pretty, at this point, wide toolkit of, these dynamic applications that you've seen on this show or previous ones. And then the goal is just to really give people the opportunity to fully examine players, and their matchups. And I mean, really just like look at, 360 view at, the slate and the players on that slate and get a good sense of maybe how they compare. This correlation app, I think, has been really, popular so far. And I just think really provides a good, quantitative backing for how we want to pair players and just giving people the tools they need to make like the most correlated plays and really, attack tournaments in kind of the most optimal way from a correlation standpoint. So yeah, check us out at advancedsportsanalytics.com or on Twitter, and we got some stuff there as well.
Yep, check out the correlation tool. I'm going to check it out a little later today. It looks pretty awesome. But we got to get out of here, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. For me, Travis Mangone, for Stewart, we're out of here.